Bunta Fujiwara, the mastermind behind the main character of Initial D named Takumi Fujiwara. This man single-handedly conditioned his son to subconsciously have the skill set of a racing driver by making him deliver tofu to a nearby hotel on top of a mountain called Mount Akina every night for the last 5 years. No matter what the terrain was, rain or snow, he made sure that Takumi got out there and kept the layout of Akina burned into his memory. But here's an interesting query about Bunta. There's almost no official evidence on what his past was like prior to Takumi being born. You'd think that the person who trained the main character into being the person he is today would have a well-known history of doing the same things that Takumi did. But this quandary gives us the ability to theorize and speculate what Bunta's past could have entailed. In this video, we're gonna figure out what Bunta Fujiwara's past could have been like and how it compares to Takumi's upbringing. Let's start off with what we know. Initial D is said to unofficially begin in late spring of 1998 due to that being the year that the anime was released. There's many speculations that it takes place earlier or later, but just to clear up any confusion, let's just say it's really 1998. During this time, Bunta is said to be around 43 years old. As the series goes on into the next year, he turns 44. With this knowledge, we can confirm that Bunta was born sometime in 1955. But here's the kicker, we don't know who Bunta's parents are, nor how he got into cars. But here's my theory. Due to the fact that Bunta's friends all owned cars and were consistently racing up and down Mount Akina's tight corners, it may have influenced Bunta to get into the street racing world himself. I feel that this backstory makes the most sense because this is similar to how Takumi's interest in driving was uplifted. Igatani, Itsuki, and Kenji all had their own cars and Takumi would often tag along with them as they raced. But back to Bunta's past, you might be wondering that if he bought a car out of inspiration from his friends, what car did he initially buy? Well, in the Japanese exclusive CD drama known as Drift King Youth Graffiti, it is said that Bunta is seen tailgating an unknown Porsche while driving a Toyota Carina. For those who don't know, the Carina was an alternative compact version of the first generation Celica GT made by Toyota in 1970. It came with many engine options spanning between 1.4 liters and 2.2 liters that made between 74 to 105 horsepower. Now, due to the fact that there's no mod for the first generation Carina on Assetto Corsa, I'll be using a first gen Celica GT in replacement for it. I also feel that Keiichi Shuchiya, known as Mr. Shuchiya in the anime, was a close ally that Bunta grew up with who taught him all about weight transfer, four-wheel drifting, and much more. In fact, there's a slight chance that maybe Bunta got invited to professionally race other skilled drivers like Kunimitu Takahashi, which would explain why everyone in the anime who's middle-aged knows who he is. In the Initial D Omnibus Volume 1 on page 382, Takumi asks Bunta what a Nissan GTR is and if he could beat one on Akina's downhill. Bunta then replies with GTR, Porsche, all the same to me. In the anime, Season 1, Episode 7, he says that he'd win against any car he'd race, R32 or not. I'm assuming that as the 1970s and 1980s went on, he persisted to accept challenges from other racers with newer cars, and as he kept winning the races, he began to notice that the car that someone's driving doesn't always matter, and instead could come down to how much skill the driver has. A great example we can give for this theory is a race that Bunta had with someone named Ken Kogashiwa. Throughout the entirety of the Initial D third stage movie, it was mentioned that Bunta and Ken had lots of rivalry that only grew with every race. But at timestamp 3953, Bunta tells Takumi that if he raced his son Kai Kogashiwa, he'd lose. The reason why he said this is because he knew that if Takumi accepted Kai's challenge, Kai would cut over one of the hairpins on his home course and overtake Takumi, leaving him stunned for the rest of the race, not knowing what to do afterwards. I think that Bunta inferred this because it's more than likely how he reacted when racing Ken in his early days. Another possible example we can use is a potential race that Bunta and Keiichi Shuchiya had on Gunma Cycle Sports Center, aka Gunzai. Shuchiya would have more than likely been driving his Doriken AE86, which only has around 213 horsepower, while Bunta's Carina only made about 140 horsepower rather than the stock 105 due to potential engine modifications. It's a power difference of 73, which can be a lot on some courses, but we have to remember that Gunzai is a very narrow track, so you can't exert the power of your vehicle the way you would want to on any other path like Miyogi or Tsubaki Line. In a nutshell, both cars are relatively slow. But Shuchiya most likely pulled away from Bunta due to course knowledge and cornering abilities, which means that if a driver has enough knowledge, they can tune and drive almost anything and still keep up with modern cars. At this point into the video, almost all Initial D fans who have a surface level amount of knowledge on who Bunta is are more than likely waiting for me to address the elephant in the room. Who is Takumi's mother? Well, sadly there is no evidence on who she is, but there's a slight chance that maybe she was originally the one to cook the tofu. Her name is unknown, but she most likely met Bunta by either being a high school classmate, or she may have even been a street racer. I could for some reason imagine her owning a Dalton 240Z. As time went on, Bunta and this unknown person could have sparked a relationship down the line and eventually became parents to their son, who would now be known as Takumi Fujiwara. I actually think that the Fujiwara tofu store was opened specifically to make money so they can race Takumi because they constantly spent their savings on tires and extra car parts. financial instability for the win. As Takumi slowly got older and went through elementary school, Bunta eventually got tired of delivering the tofu himself and wanted to teach Takumi responsibility by making him deliver the tofu to the hotel atop of Mount Akina, but the unknown mother wasn't fond of the idea, so she left Bunta as a single father. Due to Bunta not having to pay for the expenses of his ex-wife or girlfriend, he could now devote a portion of his money into trading in the Carina for a less obsolete car at that time, which would have been the infamous A86 that we all know and love. At this mark of the timeline, we all know what happens. Takumi gradually learns more and more about weight transfer and drifting through Bunta's ingenious strategy of putting a water cup in the cup holder of the 86 to represent the direction of where the weight is going in the car. 5 years later, he meets an infamous street racer who drives a sunburst yellow Mazda RX-7 FD3S named Keisuke Takahashi that he beats on Akina's downhill, making him a prodigy in the mountain racing community. So coming to a conclusion, a great way to summarize Bunta's past is that he got into cars through his friends and bought a Toyota Carina, he raced many people who drove cars from different generations, then met a woman who may have driven an old Datsun, started a family with her, split up with her, then passed down all his knowledge about racing to his son Takumi by making him deliver tofu the way he used to. With all that being said, I thank you for listening to my personal headcanon for what Bunta's past could have been like in Initial D. I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope to see you on the next one.